Kixeye has released the strategy guide for the latest dreadnought hull, the Wyvern, and I'm going to go through the build for this ballistic dreadnought, as well as talk about armor choices and a few other things you might not be thinking about. Hey everyone, Derpy here, and welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. Here's the build for the blank ship. I currently have mine at E3, trying to get this thing upgraded more so than built out, until I came out with a build for it, which I have now, so I can pivot to using various tokens and such, trying to save a few for the flagship, to put on all the components I'm going to tell you about today. As always, if you do have better components, legendary instead of common, whatever, put on the best things that you have. This applies to the CIC, to the weapons, the officers, and stuff like that, which some of this does not even exist yet. Now the base hull has in my mind a trap on the stats block, and to show you what I mean, let's look through this. Nothing too crazy with the E1 and E2. You get the CIC and the officers, which are not available yet, but will be soon. Ballistic survival and radioactive survival. The way survival works is the more of it you have, the less beneficial any incremental amount is. So you're not actually living 25 times as long with radioactive survival here. This 480k doesn't matter as much because your base ship has like 2 million survival on it already. We also do have some radioactive reload, building damage, or conquest jar might modify this number. Don't mind too much if it's a little off. Now the trap for this particular ship comes into the special abilities, which has a line that while stationary, radioactive damage and splash damage is increased. That makes this a stop-start hole when you're driving this thing. In my mind, this is a trap, and you might see this and think, I'm going to be stopped all the time. I'll put on no combat speed, very low combat speed, I won't add anything, and I'll just try and stop more often. I think what you actually want to do is still have high enough combat speed to outrun most stuff in the target, and then when you do get inside the minimum ranges of the turrets, you can stop and do more damage to them when they're not shooting at you. To really understand that though, I want to go through a quick Kixeye's survival strategy guide, whatever, on this thing, because it does make a difference on some stuff. So here is Kixeye's strategy guide for the Wyvern, which is a kind of interesting pronunciation. It's basically some big dragon thing, probably without wings. You can go and read all the flavor text and stuff if you want to on your own. I'm not going to do that for you, much as I know Lego would like that. Now, the main weapon, of course, is the thrower. This thing, you can unlock it, just the common one, and then open chests to get better and better ones to do more damage. We'll come back to that when we go over the armors, strangely enough. Again, here's the trap I talked about already. If you're stopped, you will slightly increase your radioactive damage, but you will double your splash. This essentially means, if we ignore splash fall off as a hidden stat, your splash damage is going to be twice, the radius will be twice as large as it otherwise was, which could be pretty powerful against turret clusters, which of course Kixeye is setting up to make sure you have to use this to kill everything in that turret cluster. In other words, if you're having trouble killing things, stop moving if nothing is shooting at you. Okay, now jumping into the interesting stuff, what are the enemy turrets? The coax turret, which is shown here, you can avoid by outranging it. I'm not going to talk about that one any further. The pyroclastic turret has a firing cone, a frontal cone, which generally means you can avoid this. It does have some splash, so keep that in mind when we go over armor choices. Evade will not help against this one, but you can probably drive well enough to not get hit by this one in most of the targets, again dependent on target design. The javelin here, and everything has this weird corrupted tropical feel to it, has a splash and accuracy, note that, so if it fires and it misses, it won't do any damage, so evade is helpful against the javelin turret here. The blunderbuss right here, which is basically just a splash-only weapon. I believe it's dumbfire though, although we'll have to wait to see the actual raid targets before confirming. Note that this does have a high range with safe spots inside the minimum range. In other words, you can run really quickly, get close to this guy, stop, and then it won't be able to shoot you. We also do have the Drac Ballista, which has a similar story, except this one has no accuracy and it has splash. Again, another probably dumbfire thing. Very high range this time with, again, more safe spots. The strategy of running really closely and getting inside the minimum range, maybe even before the telegraph reload has a chance to complete, could be pretty interesting here. The Wendigo, which is one of, if not the highest danger turrets in the target from the VXP weekend ones, has very high shockwave damage, or I guess it's just called out as high here, and that's Kixeye saying it's high, so you know it's going to be pretty crazy. And it does a shockwave. How shockwaves work is it has to build up enough stacks in a set period of time, and then shockwave. You can reduce this by engaging one of these turrets at once rather than multiple types, and then having it miss, which is why you're going to want to evade in this target, because that's the only way to get rid of this one. And then the other piece is killing it before it gets off a second volley at you. Otherwise, you're going to be sad and give this thing 2 chances to shoot at you instead of 1. So those are different things you can do, and we'll talk about all of those with the build process. And then there's some other mine stuff that comes out, which we're going to kind of avoid, but I guess the takeaway from that is that maneuverability, combat speed, turn speed and stuff may still be important in these targets, even though I'm probably going to be doing quite a lot of autoing. Okay, let's go ahead and go over, unless we want to talk about the purple pretty mountain skin stuff, let's go ahead and jump back to the build. Now, for the weapons, this is pretty standard. There is one weapon choice. There's no countermeasure slots. Just use the thrower that you have. I happen to only have the common one because I didn't quite get enough chests in the last raid for this. Obviously, like I said at the start, if you do have chests and stuff like that and open these weapons, put the legendary weapons on, put the best ones you have on. It's a free refit, even from the common to uncommon, uncommon to legendary, whatever, as long as it is the Frost Fire, that's an oxymoron, Frost Fire Thrower, you'll be fine. And then the CIC, put on the best one you have. I'm assuming you can fuse this, even though there is no fuse slot in the fusion factory for CICs. So if it does not exist, it should come out. This will deal radioactive damage, building damage, evade bonus. Funnily enough, it has an ore cap of 3, which is dumb because this ship is a single dreadnought, unless you're co-oping. That doesn't matter. And the legendary one adds about twice as much stuff as the common one, except evade is just always plus 5%, which should be important. Great. That's the CICs, weapons, stuff like that, whatever. Well, I guess the ore cap of 3 is because I have 3 slots here total. Ignore what I said earlier about co-op stuff. Okay. Now let's go over the specials. The first few specials you're not really going to get any disagreement with, and these are going to be, I guess, the engine that came out with the Dreadnought. If there was one that had a higher evade or different combat speed or something, there would be an argument to putting that one on. The unlimited special, which came out with the Dreadnought, is the Winter's Grasp module. I guess the Frost Fire, Frost Flame, whatever, has some kind of effect from this thing. This will do radioactive damage, building damage, and then turret defense. Turret defense is like basically survival against turrets. It is added on, so going from 2 million to 2 million plus 20k is almost no difference, less than 1%. We'll look at the exact numbers in a second. And then the other radioactive specials is going to be Super Riot Shells. This is a pretty powerful one. Projectile speed that's nice to kill things more quickly. Doesn't matter too much against buildings, which all siege targets are or should be. And then radioactive damage, building damage, stuff like that is nice. No complaints with this special. We do have another one, which is Viscosity Regulators 3. If you don't have this, Viscosity Regulators 2 is decent, but not quite as good. This is tier 11. I'm imagining most of you have this. I guess this one is 3, not the one that says 2, the one that says 3. The splash damage, radioactive damage, stuff like that, no complaints with this one. Now, the last special slot you can use here, let me make sure I equip this one all the way, actually, because it doesn't look like it took. Viscosity Regulators. Special slot 5 is going to be Evade, because much of the guaranteed damage from the target, from the throwers and stuff like that can shockwave, is Evade, and you're going to want to use Guidance Scrambler 3 for this one. Agility System 4 is limited and is the exact same stats for PvE, except has a longer build time. So if you want a longer build time, use Agility System 4. You want a lower one, use the one I'm showing you. Okay, your last special, you have a few different options. You could play around with the radioactive reload. We're not quite at the minimum reload time yet. A 10-second base, divide that by 4 for the legendary plus 75%, will get you down to 2 seconds, and I don't think your reload at but 20% right here is quite there. Now you could use something like autoloaders 4, not 3, because 3, even though it has a higher ballistic reload, does not affect radioactive. You could use autoloaders 4, which again, let's pull up the stats on that one, radioactive reload, and this thing will give you a plus 66%. Decent. You could even use the insulated charge capacitor, which is much better than that, has supercharge, doesn't matter, these are not throwers, and has 82% radioactive reload and 30% bonus combat speed. This flechette thing, again, is worse than either of those options. But if you hop over into your limited tab, you can see that in the radioactive reload, we do have the insulated, or I guess this is the invested barrel, or launcher barrel. This has plus 30% combat speed and 110%, which if you consult the stat blocks compared to the first one, 110 and 30, means this is better than insulated charge capacitor, simply because it has a faster, or I guess a larger reload number. So we're going to throw this one on here. Not too much argument in special. From what I've seen, most people out there have generally aligned on the 6 specials I've shown you here. Brief note on the officers, make sure if you're trying to put on something that's named Captain, it goes in the gold slot, slot number 1, remove whatever was in there, add the Captain, and then the regular ones can go in any 3 slots, but a Captain can only go in this first one. Those obviously don't exist yet and will not exist until the first raid where you're using the ship. So you have to use the ship to get the things you put on the ship. Make that one make sense. Now the thing that we're going to get some questions and stuff about, and I have a few pretty good ones, is the armors. Now the standard choice, and let's actually go ahead and consult the defense stat before we put on the armors. This is at an E3 evolution level. I'm assuming E6 through E10 will have some radioactive reload, which will make my point even radioactive in survival and ballistic survival, which will make my point even stronger. We are at 2.4 million survival. This is an insanely large number. I wish Kixeye had commas in here so it was a little easier to see. Unless that's 23 million, that would be insane. 2.4 million survival on here already. What this means is that when you go from 2.4 million to, say, and you take on the armors and add it, you're not really getting as much benefit as you think you are. If I look at the armors which came out with this ship, like the radioactive, and I'm just going to go ahead and type in radioactive because it will show basically all the things I want to. If I put on the Wyvern platings and stuff like that, which appear to be bugged, by the way, Kixeye, they're not showing up, so I'm going to report that in bug reports and hope that doesn't ban me again. But when I look at the armors that come out for the ship, the radioactive ones down here, these give 200k survival and 4.5 million armor points. The whole has essentially 450 million armor points, and 200k survival is added to the 2.4 million. So that's the one option right there, and I'm rounding a little bit. Now, the question is, if you go from 2.4 million to, and let's go ahead and pull up my survival calculator, and I'm going to type in 2.4 million. Which is always a fun thing to do, to watch people type. And you go from 2.4 million to that plus 200k, you get a 7% decrease in damage taken. That's how you should read this spreadsheet. Going from survival 1 to survival 2, you will take 8% less damage. Now, it will be a little bit in addition to that, because your base armor goes from 450 million to 450 million plus 4.5, essentially plus 1%, so about 8.6% damage taken less. Your repair time will be an hour minus 8%, going from 2.4 million to 2.6 million, and adding in those armor points. Now, obviously, if you put more and more of these on here and you go at like 3.4 million, so let's take the survival number, add 1 million to it, and then add 200k. Instead of having, oh, that's the wrong number. Instead of a 7.6% decrease, you get a 5.5%. The more survival you have, the less benefit any additional survival is. Keep that in mind. So that's I guess the standard choice is to use these armors that are going to come out with the ship, and you can get in, spend a bunch of points to get chests, which might give you some armors, and fuse them together and hope you get good ones. And notably, these things do not give you any additional damage. So you're not going to get any extra damage from using this armor. There's no plus 2%, plus 4%, whatever. No radioactive damage bonus. Now, you could go ahead and use the older radioactive armors that you probably have and could take off your Eradicators or whatever that particular fleet was named. And this has, at Legendary, almost identical survival. 175k and 4% ballistic, 4% radioactive. That's the money right there. This thing has 25k less, which basically is a rounding error compared to the armor you were going to put on this thing, and increases your damage by 4%. I mean, if you are going to put survival armor on here, it is basically a no-brainer to use the legendary armor of the tier 13 if you have this. Now, you miss out on the 4.5 million armor points and get basically 0, and you're not adding 1% to your health total, so your health total is not 1% higher, but you're doing 4% more damage, so this generally seems worth it, especially if you're trying to increase your damage more. You could even use the tier 14 stuff right here. This one, Admentium plating. I can't remember what particular ship this was supposed to go on. But this, oh, that's explosive. Ignore that. Use the radioactive stuff. Radioactive and ballistic is what you would want to use on this thing. And this might even still be available in the Forsaken Mission, stuff like that, to overload your chests on and open a bunch of these up. So check that if you haven't already. So that's the survival armor thing, and just to check, let's see what happens if we go from 2.4 million. Let's go from 2.6. Let's go from 2.6 million and take away 25k and see how much decrease that gives you. That's at 250k. This one minus 25,000 will get you a less than 1% decrease from the survival benefit. And I guess there's an additional percentage decrease from like not having the extra armor points. So call it 2% decrease in how you're going to take 2% more damage if you go from the 200k to the 175k. But you're going to do 4% more damage to the enemy, so that could very much be worth it. In terms of the survival split, if you want to use that route, I would go 50-50. I'm not going to try and play around with, oh, more radioactive, more ballistic. That might be something to do after the first raid or something. But what I'm planning to do with the armor is none of that. I'm putting on D5EV. This is so I don't have to get the points to put the armors on, which might sound a little bit lazy, which it is. The other thing is that D5EV, obviously, while it does have the negative of having a big repair time on this thing, adds like 8 minutes to the ship, times like 6 armor, 8 armor points, eventually that's a lot. But this thing helps with maneuverability, which we've established is helpful against the lily pads. It helps you close the gap and get inside the minimum range faster, potentially taking 1 less volley from these turrets. And it could be the difference between getting shockwaved or not getting shockwaved, and I guess other guaranteed damage by the javelin in this particular target. So I put it on all D5EV armors. I might regret that and might want to change a little bit, but with the high survival numbers I already have on here, and with evade working against most of the guaranteed damage on the target, and with the ability to increase that even further by using a Sea Serpent's crew, that's my plan for this particular ship. But if you are putting on survival armors, I would actually put on the ones that do 4% radioactive damage and have 175k, which you probably already have in stock. If you have questions about that armor stuff, let me know. Neither option is bad. I guess all 3 of those options, the standard one, the one that does 4% damage, and D5EV, they're all pretty good options. I just think the D5EV is the path of least resistance, the best one, the one that will make the targets the most fun to drive, because this is a game and we're trying to have fun by driving around in the targets, at least the ones I do choose to drive. So that's what I think I'm going to do with these ones, D5EV on all of them, as I get this thing built out. And maybe I won't have these armors on for the first raid because it's so soon from now, but I'll plan to refit them on using tokens and stuff like that. So there's my thoughts for the Wyvern, the latest garrison, I guess, dreadnought that is a siege dreadnought, not garrison, siege dreadnought. If you have questions, go ahead and let me know in the comments section down below. I want to give a huge thank you to the channel members whose names appear on the end screen now. They're helping make videos like this one possible. With that said, and until next time, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.